Good morning. It's 10:04 and we're calling today's meeting of the Elections Subcommittee to order. Mr. Topman and Mr. Wilbur are present and participating here via Zoom. So let's pull up the agenda. Let me just get my Okay, so the first item on our agenda today is communications, and I think we've received a couple we probably want to talk about. Any preference for where we start on this, Mike?
Take your lead.
Okay, so first thing I'll just pull up, and let me just grab my email and pull it up. We have an email from former school committee member Susan Henry that she sent us earlier this month with some questions about our plans going forward around this subcommittee and the work we are charged to do by the school committee. Let me just pull up her email and we can then look at that.
Yeah, I've got that up here. Yeah.
Tried to search my email for Susan Henry and received quite a few.
Yeah, it was on January 20th.
January 20th, got it. Okay, so if we look at this email here, she asked a question first about the Berlin coffee talk session, which I believe was last month, and I understand that she attended that on behalf of the school committee. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. I think he asked a question about the incorporation of an election kind of Q&A session within our agenda in our first April meeting of the school committee. And asked about how much time we'll need and who will facilitate it. I guess I'm of the opinion that we're going to, within that agenda, and we can talk to the vice chair now about how to potentially structure it within the agenda of that meeting. But at the beginning of the meeting, provide an opportunity for anyone interested in asking questions about the November 22 election, whether they're residents, candidates, voters, who, from whatever perspective they have, to have a back and forth Q&A session with members of the committee. And I would expect that she's asking here in this email who will facilitate, how will it be structured, how should school committee members prepare for this, how will it be publicized.
I think we'll probably cover that during the business items there, the outreach and communication strategies. Okay. So I think that's covered.
Yep. Let's just look through here. She has some questions about where we will share information. That, once again, that's going to be covered in our next item, right, on the sharing of information and how to communicate things. That's about a longer term engagement plan. We can also talk about that in our next item as well. There's a lot of questions in this email.
I think most of them will be covered in that item there.
Yeah. She asked about where the most recently updated FAQ document is. That was it was approved on December 12th at our meeting. We actually had some correspondence I had last night with a member of the community who was asking some questions about the upcoming election. I shared it with them. There's a PDF of that available, and I think that we intend to have the district add a page probably within its site on the election, and we can post that there. But that was clearly approved at that meeting and was available in the folder for that meeting that we have access to. And I think that's it. Okay.
Cool.
Other communications, I know we had a member of the public last night ask and make some comments about the fact that our school committee is made up of folks who were appointed to the school committee as opposed to elected to the school committee. I think you and I have spoken about this topic many times within this group as well as within the school committee meeting. And it's obviously, in my opinion, unfortunate that the previous school committee members who were elected failed to hold an election in 2020 as they should have. I think we've probably talked about that multiple times as to why that didn't happen and what deadlines they missed in order to be able to hold an election. I'd also point out that those of us who are now appointed to the school committee were appointed by those who had been elected previously. And so I think we've shared this information, discussed this topic at almost every meeting we've had in the last year, and it's pretty evident and clear as to why we are where we are and why we're moving forward the way we are. And
I
why
believe so. It's even referenced in our FAQ document there that you mentioned.
It is correct. So I think we can probably report on that during our report at the meeting on the 8th and remind everybody, including the public, why we are where we are when it comes to an election and the steps we've taken to ensure there will be an election in November of 2022 at the time of the state's biennial election. Any other communications? I mentioned the one I had from a member of the public asking for some information, shared the FAQ document. Anything else, Mike, that you've received since?
No, just everything you covered there. I was on those as well. So,
okay. So then moving forward, first item on our business agenda today is review the election outreach and communication strategy. There's a document somewhere with that. Let me see if I can. Do you have that, Mike?
No, I don't have it up, but I do remember it. I think it's probably a good idea just to sort of finalize that right now so that we can include that in our report on Tuesday. Because it is February and the time is approaching. So I think we're going to start doing some of those things. So yeah, happy to just discuss it and finalize our plans right now. We can bring it to the full committee.
Yeah, there's, I think the only thing we've potentially shared here and talked about is this document. And tell me if you think I'm wrong. There might have been a lengthier one that I know Susan prepared prior to this to kind of research or provide some research information on how we should proceed with this, but I'll just share what I believe to be the most recent version of that timeline. Is this document?
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're currently in this community engagement phase. We've already presented to the town clerks, administrators, and selectmen on the upcoming election and informed them of what's happening. We're talking about this community forum happening in April, and publish election info and FAQs on BBRST website. We talked about that, and sharing across channels. And so I think we have a vote coming up later in the meeting to talk about a press release we'll send to the press announcing the election and information we have available. School newsletters obviously can come from the superintendent, and that's really in his purview as to whether to include it or not in those. And then there's some comments here about, Council on Aging and through other local community organizations and community Facebook pages. I'm of the opinion that we need to be somewhat cautious as to how we and where we share this information to ensure that we are sharing it in public forums as opposed to any kind of private Facebook groups or things like that. Obviously, if a member of the public wants to take the information that we've shared publicly and share it on their own wherever they'd like, they're free to do that. I'm concerned, though, that we ensure we don't proactively share things that with specific groups that could then be insinuated that we're trying to only inform certain groups of the community.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. We've seen some examples of that recently. I don't know all the Boylston pages, so I wouldn't even know where to begin. I know some of the Berlin pages. I know some information was shared on some of the Berlin neighbors pages and not others, and I just wouldn't want anybody to feel that they're being excluded. So if we exclude everybody, then we're not excluding an individual person, I guess. Is that how that works, right? So
yeah,
exclude everybody by not excluding everybody. I don't know.
I think sometimes,
yeah, I think the district page, the town's actual pages, like related to town government pages, and then other people are free to share it as they see fit. I mean, if they have their own page and they want to share it, that's fine.
Yeah. So with that being said, Mike, I'd like to make an adjustment to what we have written here and
Uh-huh.
be clear on where we intend to share information. So we
Yeah.
talked about school newsletters. I think that's appropriate, and the superintendent can decide when and how to share that. It's his newsletter. Local newspapers of the press release, right?
Yep.
Text a little smaller because we're a little tight here. Oops. Zoom in here. Let's see. There we go. I personally don't think we should be sharing it in any kind of local community newsletter that only hits a certain population. And so my preference would be to strike what we had here around COA newsletters and other local community organizations, and in place of that, put, you know, town websites. I don't think we have this on here, but
Yeah.
town websites. And then this community Facebook pages piece to me is a little non-specific, and we need to be a little more clear as to what we mean here. As we're aware, there are private Facebook groups that have been created by members of the community that are private, and the access to those and the management of those groups is controlled by individuals who aren't on the school committee. And I think we have to be pretty careful about whether we share information in those groups as the school committee or members of it. I'd certainly prefer that other members of the public might choose to share what we've made available within those groups without it coming directly from us being posted there. So when we talk about community Facebook pages, I would rather put this as the official town Facebook pages that are public.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
So let's just make sure we get this right. Publish election info and FAQs on BBRC website and share across channels, local newspapers via press release, school newsletters per discretion of superintendent, town websites, and official town Facebook pages.
Yeah,
Or you can say
and,
social media pages.
yeah. And I don't know if it comes under this or not, but you know, there will be some other places where the information gets shared. It's in the school committee's report to the towns already, and I'm sure that will come out at town meetings. So it's there as well. I believe the towns send out an example of the ballots ahead of time so people know what's going on in there. So that'll be there. We discussed bringing it up at future meetings, you know, in September and October. So it will be out there in plenty of places.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to take these same 4 bullets and just put them here as well, because it's the same information. We're just making a change here. And so this is speaking to the next phase, which is once nomination papers become available, continuing to share that information and ensure it remains updated across those same channels. And then finally, the campaign phase happens, you know, come May. What we have here is that during this phase, candidates will campaign for office and may choose to participate in organized public forums and to distribute campaign materials throughout the community. Election will occur on November 8th, and 6 elected candidates will take office on November 9th. Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Okay. One is add a revision here. We revised on 2/2/2022. Here. The specifically okay. This timeline itself, I don't believe was ever approved by the school committee, nor needs to be voted on to be revised. I think we are within our rights as this committee to update it. This FAQ document here, right, it really isn't, it's been replaced with the formal FAQ document. I'm going to leave it in here just for public record standpoint, but I'm just going to move this up so we can see that there and say,
Right.
here.
Yeah, and I think we'll just include this discussion in our report, I guess. Yeah, I've got the full, the approved document for FAQ I've got open here. It's much more detailed than what we have here.
This was more of a working document that we used as we
Yeah.
planned for the FAQs. So it just lists the questions more than the responses, which we've then had approved by the school committee.
All right.
Okay, anything else on the election outreach and communication strategy?
Nope, I think I'm good there. And we kind of
Thank
covered
you.
the timeline and key dates too, but we should say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, which is the kind of the same, those two things going. I think this document probably covers both A and B on our agenda.
Yeah.
Right. I think the minutes of this meeting should reflect the changes we've made here, and specifically to more kind of specifically state where we're going to share the information, and we can report it on that at the meeting next week. Anything else on A or B from your standpoint, Mike?
No, the key timeline and date that I'm interested in right now goes along with C.
C, which is approved letter to Secretary of State
Yes.
with notice of vacancies.
Yep, I see that you have that in the drive there.
Yes. So I'll pull that up as well. So this is the draft, as I think I basically took the example we had from, wasn't Wachusett, it was Mount Greylock's regional district, and just replaced some of the text to be ours. So that document is shared here. This letter is prepared and really ready to go with the committee's approval to the Secretary of State. And
yeah, we will have to make one edit here.
Where's that?
From the town of Berlin, that first bullet will need to be updated with whoever that is at the time.
So I agree. Do we want to, though, send this now?
I think we need to get it now. Yes, I think we should do it now and send it now, just in case, they come back with anything and, we find out some T hasn't been crossed or I dotted. We want to make sure we have time before the April 1st deadline, I think, right? It's April 1st, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's April 15th, but either way, I'd like to get it.
Yeah.
This is where the previous committee failed to get this done. I think we need to get this in place as soon as we can.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, the language for that first bullet might be, previously held. That's probably fair. If we have to send them an update, if someone is named in the meantime, then
I think we should. I think, I don't know how that affects the ballot and whether there's like an incumbent thing on the ballot itself. So I'd say let's bring this up to the committee to approve. Well, let's us first vote. Let me do this. I entertain a motion to approve the letter as shown here to the Secretary of State.
Second.
So I made the motion, Mike has seconded it, and we are now discussing the letter as we are looking at it here. So yeah, I think we send it now, Mike, and then if we appoint someone to that seat, or at whatever point we do as a committee, that we then just send another letter updating them on this, and we keep track of the fact that we sent both of those letters.
Yeah, that sounds
by
like
certified mail.
Yep, I'd vote on that.
Otherwise, I think this is pretty straightforward. I make sure I have this correct here. For Berlin, 1 candidate for a 4-year term, 2 candidates for a 2-year term, and from Boylston, 2 candidates for a 4-year term, 1 candidate for a 2-year term.
Yeah, I reviewed the regional agreement this morning, and that's how it's stated.
Okay. So any other discussion on this letter?
It looks good to me.
Okay, so let's vote to approve the letter as indicated. I vote yes.
Yes.
And motion passes, and we can move on to our next item, which is approval of a press release.
It's in the drive there if you want to pull it up, since you got the
Sure.
screen.
Let me grab it.
It's up there as a PDF doc.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. So do you want to make a motion, Mike?
Yeah, motion to approve the press release as written and bring it
Second.
to the full committee. All right.
So we both. I think that's fine. I might just strike the word "you" is my only question there at the end of the third sentence. So I might make an amendment to say any questions the
Yes.
public might have.
Yep, that's a good idea. I'll
Okay.
do that right now.
So we'll approve that amendment by consent here. So rather than answer questions you might have, it'll be answer questions the public might have about the selection.
Yep.
For more information, you've got the link to the website, FAQ document, and that's great. I have no other comments on this.
Okay.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. So we'll bring both of these to the full committee at the February 8th meeting for full committee approval on both the press release and the notice of vacancies. Any other comments or future agenda items to discuss here today?
No, I just think we should have keep with our schedule to have a meeting a month just to make sure we're on top of those dates.
Yep. We're going out to March. We have a school committee meeting on March 1st, but we might not have one on March 8th. Do you know if there's a second meeting in March?
Not planned, I don't believe.
If we have one, it would probably be on the 15th, right?
On the 22nd, I don't know. Is that when do the holidays fall that month? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I believe it's supposed to be the second and final Tuesday.
Yep.
I think is what it is.
So the final Tuesday is the 29th of March. Do you want to do like the 23rd?
Yep, that works.
Same time, 10 o'clock via Zoom?
Works for me.
Okay. Calendar. And so we're going to give a report at the school committee meeting on the 8th. I'd like to suggest that report be a written report so that we can address some of the questions that have been posed about the appointment versus election of the existing school committee. Do you want to take that on? Want me to write that? What do you think?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that.
Okay. So if you want to provide that report, I'll do the minutes from this meeting and get those over to Lori and Christy in time for our meeting on the 8th. And then if you want to take a stab at the written report, we can then move
Have
forward.
that done at the meeting.
Perfect. Any other comments or future addendum items?
No, I'm sure we'll have an update once I'm sure the state responds to your letter with some sort of confirmation.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll just make sure to announce that when we get it.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just make a comment. You know, as I mentioned earlier, there have been some questions and some comments made in public forums about the fact that the members of the school committee are appointed currently and not elected. It bothers me to have people questioning that, given that we've been talking about this for quite some time. And I know I personally, even prior to being on the school committee, was pretty adamant with the previous school committee, as well as reaching out to town clerks about understanding the election timeline as it should have been in place. You know, at the end of the day, this school committee actually was never elected because the regional school district was created as a combination of the previous school districts. So there's never been an election for the Berlin-Boylston regional school district that exists today. Those who were elected to previous school committees got appointed to that. And then over a period of time, because they failed to hold an election, they appointed folks to take their places as they across the board have now resigned over time, and that perhaps part of the reason for that is because their terms were never ending because they didn't have an election themselves. So that's just my kind of personal comment on this topic. And I think we can appropriately address that and speak to it in our report to the school committee next week.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. I'm sure there'll be some sort of announcement for the currently open seat as well, so it'll tie in with that
Yeah, I spoke to Christy coming out of the meeting last night, and it seemed like that was going to post today.
today. Okay, good. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll include that in a report and report on exactly what the current situation is as far as the election goes. And I expect we'll have it.
Yep.
A free and fair election as was requested last night.
Exactly. Okay, so a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And all in favor?
Yes.
I vote yes, so the meeting has been adjourned.